Do you want Hollywood movies on Apple TV Plus? Do you want an ad-supported tier for Apple TV Plus? This is TV Plus Talk on MacVoices.
Hello, welcome to TV Plus Talk. We've made it to summer, and that means there's a lot of TV to talk about because we've got 6 months worth of stuff on Apple TV Plus. There's a lot of stories happening in the kind of summer lull in Hollywood, and so there's a lot to discuss with my friend Chuck Joyner. Hello.
Hello, Charlotte. It's great to see you as always. And yes, we have made it partway through summer, and I am burned to a crisp. I'm looking actually forward to the first frost, I think.
I can't get on board with this. I'm very pro sun because we don't get much of it here. There's sort of one story that our whole conversation centers on, really, and that is this idea that came through Bloomberg, but is sort of percolated out, and it's something you and I have discussed basically since we started the show, is that Apple is apparently in talks to license more films from Hollywood. That's according to Lucas Shaw and Thomas Buckley at Bloomberg News. Now, I've got strong opinions on this. It won't shock you to know, but what's your take?
I think my take is the same as it's been. It's a nice little expansion to Apple TV Plus and to the original content. It leverages Hollywood, and these films are available for a limited time only. And there are times I feel like, Charlotte, with all due respect to all the streaming services, we're almost running into a problem where there's too many choices, that you get frozen by too many choices. And so the idea that, okay, Saturday night rolls around and I decide that I want to watch a video or a movie, I should say, and I'm a TV Plus subscriber, then I can look at it and say, well, I have these 50, give or take, to choose from. The odds are pretty good that I'm going to find at least one, instead of looking at these 5,000 options I have and just going to bed and saying I can't make a decision.
So I think this is actually a real strategic error from Apple if they go down this path. Because I think Apple TV Plus has been so distinctive in that it's only originals. And it's finally getting that message out. How many times have you and I had conversations with people where they're like, oh yeah, I've heard about Apple TV Plus, but there's nothing on it, is there? And actually, there's now, as we've discussed, lots of a fantastic back catalogue. And I think actually Apple should be embracing that. There's so many times I hear people talking about Apple as the HBO of streaming, of TV Plus as the kind of HBO equivalent. And that's the niche it's put itself in. It doesn't need to buy other people's casts off. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's building, after taken time, but it's building this reputation now. Why would you risk that?
It's a great point. And I don't completely disagree with it. I see it almost as
I'm going to sit and drink tea in my righteousness.
I don't have any tea, so I guess I'm not righteous. I see it as an expansion of what Apple TV Plus can offer. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it, people like a little bit more variety. And so they're going to offer a little more variety just beyond what the original content is. This gives them the opportunity to I don't think it dilutes their programming. I think it just adds to it, so that maybe I might be more likely to come and say, let's see what's out on Apple TV Plus. I'm looking for a film, but hey, you know what? That TV show over there, I've been meaning to check that out. And so it may actually bring folks there. Financially, I'm not sure how it's going to work, and neither one of us are privy to those parts of the discussion. But I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it just almost as a test case. If this works out, and they will have all the numbers, so they'll know whether it's a viable thing.
Look, Apple is starting to make a really distinctive name itself. Yes, there's the HBO kind of style originals, which we just talked about, but there's also, it's doing live sport, right? Now, that's a pretty compelling case for a streaming service. Strong, beautifully produced originals and live sport. I don't see why they're playing around with it. I think
But
it's too knee-jerk.
yeah, but in my opinion, they're doing a great job on the TV series. But are they doing as good a job, and it's obviously a bigger commitment, on films? And I think that there's still a
Mhm.
distinction between that, between those two media types with folks.
Yeah, I
That
think that's a fair point.
somebody may want to sit down on Saturday night and watch that 2-hour movie, and then it's done. The story is over, and they can move on to whatever they're going to do Sunday morning. But if I watch 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 episodes of a TV show on Saturday night, I still have more to do. And so it's a different kind of viewing.
I think you need to get out on Saturday nights. I think that's what we're learning from this discussion, Chuck.
Well, I'm not arguing that, Charlotte, not at all.
No, what I think it's a really, really valid point you're making about movies, the difference between movies and films. And I think it's also fair, which I think is what you were getting at, right? Which is that Apple TV Plus has had hit TV shows. Obviously there's Ted Lasso, but there's also Presumed Innocent people seem to be really liking. There's been a host of films, of TV shows that have really started to make an impact one way or the other. And I don't, Slow Horses, is another example I always like to use. And I don't think there has been an Apple film that has made the same impact. You and I both really like Tetris, if I remember, but it didn't get huge mainstream coverage, did it? For what was a really good, enjoyable film.
It did not, Charlotte, and we can point to a number of those films that I think we've both enjoyed that haven't gotten the major league attention. What I have never bothered.
Although, sorry to interrupt, but as we're having this conversation, we do also need to put in context that Apple TV Plus became the first streaming service to win the Best Picture Oscar, albeit with a film it purchased at Sundance, not created in-house.
But it still is the Apple TV Plus brand.
Absolutely.
So, but I haven't done the math, and I'm not sure the numbers are even available to really decide, okay, if I'm going to invest X number of millions of dollars in a TV show versus X number of $1 million in a film or a movie.
Yeah.
How many hours of content am I buying for that? Let's say $100 million.
Yeah,
and so, and there's one other thing that has been the word has been making the rounds is that Apple TV Plus has been looking to do some budget cuts. And you and I have had this discussion before. They threw
like everyone else in Hollywood.
Well, yeah, but they threw a lot of money into some films, and they hit big with the award shows and the award ceremonies, but they didn't maybe hit as big as they would have liked to with the audiences. So,
but particularly post-pandemic, I think the Tom Hanks one did well in the pandemic when it couldn't be shown in cinemas. There hasn't since Coda, because I do think we have to reiterate what a huge success that was and what a huge moment that was. There hasn't been a blockbuster Apple movie, even the ones that have sort of gone into the theatres.
So let me ask you this, Charlotte. Do you think that Apple TV Plus is in the business of making blockbusters? Or do you think they are still going back to Tim Cook's original introduction about we want to tell great stories, and great stories don't necessarily translate to blockbusters?
Honestly, I've really come to the conclusion, while I was thinking about this whole thing about buying a back catalogue, I've really come to the conclusion that Apple TV Plus just needs to make itself HBO. The more I think about it, the more convinced that I'm right I become. It needs... And that doesn't mean every show needs to be another Slow Horses or Presumed Innocent, right? Just like HBO doesn't only make Succession. But it means they should focus on that and being a really great TV company. So there is really good children's content on there. There's really good documentaries. There's live sport. There's top end series. Sounds to me like a really good TV channel, right? That's quite useful to people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So why get involved in the Hollywood rat race as well?
Experimentation.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
prestige, I guess.
well, prestige, but just the idea that let's find out if this resonates with our audience. If 6 months from now, Apple TV Plus announces, hey, you know what, we're not going to license movies anymore from Hollywood. Okay, that's going to send a pretty clear message that that was not a successful strategy. So
Mm-hmm.
what do they try next? Do they, they have a movie of Hollywood movie of the week? God, that sounds like it's such a dated concept. But do they, instead of having that variety, do they just focus and say, or this is going to be, MCU week, and we're going to show Marvel Cinematic Universe movies for a week? Yeah, I mean, I can
Well,
see this
Bob
being an
Iger does have a good relationship.
well, and look, think about the overall streaming landscape right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to figure out how to survive.
I think so. I think they should keep, like, niches are important, right? And Apple has carved out a niche. It doesn't need to be Disney Plus or Netflix, because it's also part of a bigger Apple media environment. So I don't think it needs to do that. Um, I don't think it needs to mimic Netflix. Another way it might be mimicking Netflix as it moves forward, as you pointed out to me before the show, there's been lots of discussion and rumours circulating that we might soon be getting ads on Apple TV Plus. Now, you do get ads, for example, if you watch certain live things. I'm pretty sure I've seen ads on the baseball. So, like, ads at Apple TV Plus is not impossible, and it obviously most importantly does pre-roll post ads for its own content already. But that's not really what you were talking about, was it?
Well, once again, we're talking about rumors, so we don't know
Sure.
exactly what we're talking about. Is it possible that Apple could introduce an ad-supported tier, as opposed to, and then therefore jack up the price to the no ad tier? Um, the advertising thing is interesting, and I'm going to go off topic just a little bit and point out podcasting. There are
I'll continue
podcasts
with my
out.
tea then. Thanks.
Please do. there are podcasts out there, and my show is ad supported. I think your show is ad supported one way or
Yes.
another. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
but you can overdo it. I can think of one particular podcast, and I'm not going to call any names, but
Do it.
no, I'm not going to do it. But every show pre-roll is 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes of advertisement. It's a great business show. I don't mind saying that. It's a great business show, and I enjoy it. But I've gotten in the habit of, tap, 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 30 seconds at a
I
time
must
to
tell
try
you,
to.
I've heard shows that are longer than that,
I,
more advertising than that.
and advertising mid-roll and advertising post-roll. And I think they're going to kill themselves, because I'm getting to the point where it's frustrating. So if all of these entities that adopt advertising would do so in a, for lack of a better phrase, a tasteful fashion, I think it would go down a lot easier, instead of just trying to jam every single ad they can get in there, hoping that people will watch them or pay attention to the content.
Yeah, you can't take your viewers for granted. Do you think Apple could introduce ads and frame it as that's the way we're keeping the price as low as it is? Do you think they would do that? Have adverts for everyone and then keep the price low? So it's increasing the sort of ARPU, for one of the technical, the average revenue per user, presumably, but keeping the compelling price point.
That's a really interesting idea. It doesn't feel Apple-like to me.
No, maybe you might well be right there. But it just feels... Look, TV Plus is already not a very big service, right, compared to other things. It's not like Netflix, where the numbers are huge, so a lower tier kind of works because there's still so many numbers across the board, right? Slicing and dicing a relatively small viewership seems like a lot of effort you're going to annoy people anyway, right? If you put up prices, it annoys people. If you introduce ads, it annoys people. If you do both, it really annoys people. So I kind of think spin of like, we're keeping the price low, but you're going to see a couple of pre-roll and post-roll ads. I mean, to be honest, I'd be perfectly happy if Apple did that, frankly.
It wouldn't bother me, but I know people seem to see this as a black and white issue. Either they accept ads, or they really, really, really detest ads. And
right.
I'm somewhere in the middle, because I grew up with ad-supported TV that was over the air, and so most ads, if they're not overdone, are not a big deal. But when I start running into 2 and 3 minute stretches of ads, then I get a little touchy.
So, yeah, this goes back to the fundamental point that it's about respecting your listeners, viewers, readers, whatever. We don't like reading websites where it's just scattered with meaningless programmatic ads. I like listening to podcasts where the podcaster reads out about a product that I may well be interested, or a service that I might be interested in, for example. I have no objection to a website flagging another product I may be interested in, likewise a TV program. So if Apple could do it in a respectful way, that might work. I think I've read that on News Plus, Apple is doing an advertising deal with Taboola. Those ads that you often see at the bottom of websites. So it's obviously, as the media part of Apple, is clearly thinking about advertising a lot more than it has previously.
Charlotte, I think the way the world is right now, I mean, you almost have to. It's because people are not willing to pay as big a premium, and or the companies are not as satisfied with the premium they get for ad-free content. And so what do you do? Do you raise the prices, or do you start embracing the advertising model a little bit and try to make it tasteful and, to your point, respecting the viewer or reader? I can understand why they're having to do it.
So we should know that Apple has actually gone up. TV Plus has actually gone up in price since it first launched. Not enormous amounts, and it's still very compelling compared to the others. So it's $8.99 a month now in the UK. What is it in dollars? In the US, it's £8.99. I have it as part of an Apple One bundle, which I still think that's very good value. I think the bundles are good value, and I think the service on its own is good value. I also think that it is pushing the limit of, at the moment, what people will pay for it. So if it wants to, which it obviously does because it's Apple, wants to increase the revenue coming through the system, putting a couple of ads front and back is no problem. And, back to our earlier conversation about the type of content, this is where I think these two topics come together. I think that's a very compelling pitch for advertisers. One, that everyone that pays for TV Plus is going to see adverts. Two, that people are coming specifically to TV Plus for our content, and they know it's high quality content. So you've got a high caliber of viewer to put your adverts in front of. If you start mucking around with the catalogue, you might lose that.
Charlotte, I don't disagree. Look, I have a question for you, because I'm not an HBO subscriber. I have zero idea what the ad structure, if there is one, in HBO is. Do they have ads at all?
Remember, HBO, is in the US. I only see it as part of Sky Atlantic here, which absolutely does have adverts. Okay. And obviously, there's Max, the streaming service, isn't there? HBO Max became Max, didn't it? And they put all of that together. And then the content is licensed here through Sky and Now TV as part of what they call Sky Atlantic. So there's obviously that part of it. HBO obviously does have adverts. I'm sure of that. I can't quite remember what they do on the Max streaming service. It's just your fundamental point, and frankly, both these topics of our conversation is really hit on this, is that in streaming, it's a real time of experimentation. It's a time of, it's quite difficult at the moment for people who are running these services, because it's a crowded marketplace. It's a competitive marketplace. And Apple knowingly went into that marketplace and yet now is having to do the kind of juggling. I wonder if it ever thought it would have to do this kind of juggling. What do you know what I mean? Like, did it think, oh, we're Apple, we can do it the Apple way. We don't have to play the game that others do. We don't need to worry about ads. We don't need to, we just have all our own content. We can be Apple about it.
Well, Apple, as we both know, loves to control everything they can possibly control.
Everything.
And right now, the overall streaming landscape is something they can't control. They can control what they put on their channel, or their service, I should say, and they do, and they have up to this point. Now they're reaching out and saying maybe we can tap another source for content, because again, my recollection from the movies I've paid attention to in these packages, they're far from first-run movies. They're the kind of movies that you go back and say, I'm looking for an old favorite, or I'm looking for maybe something I missed that I meant to watch and never got around to.
You mean the type of movies that they might be commissioning?
Yes. Yeah, the ones that have already been there, and now they're looking at...
Well, we did have that. I think there's going to have to be a discussion about that. I'm not sure, because we did have it when they made 50-odd movies available, didn't they, that were pretty good. And obviously, they must have been happy with how that played out, right? Yeah,
but again, they were not first run. They were just in the theaters 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago.
Sure,
as exactly. I recall, and so that's where I feel like this may not be a terrible strategy of just giving the Apple TV Plus viewer another option for a movie style. Because, well, look, you and we disagreed on Napoleon a bit.
Not my vibe.
We agreed on Tetris.
Great film. Really enjoyed that.
But okay, so let's see, what other Killers of the Flower Moon I still haven't seen, because that just wasn't my thing.
Likewise.
So what...
But actually, sorry to interrupt, but Killers of the Flower Moon is a really great example of what we were talking about. So that was meant to be an absolute mega hit. It took years. It cost a fortune. Do you think it made that huge cultural impact that Apple would have expected from that movie?
I don't think it did. I sure didn't hear many people talking. I mean, beyond the fact that it was out there, beyond the fact that the actor roster was amazing and all that. No, but it's not the first time that somebody that was trying to make it's an interesting phrase you used, Charlotte, a culturally impactful video or movie fell flat on its face.
Maybe flat on its face is a bit harsh, but it didn't make the impact that some of the TV shows have, has it? None of the movies have, apart from Coda.
No, they have not. So here we go. Back to your point, should TV Plus become HBO? Back to my point, do they need to expand out into something that gives a little more variety for a different type of watching?
To wrap up then, in 6 months' time, do you think we will see adverts on Apple TV Plus?
I think we will see some option for advertising of some kind. I don't know that it would be just the Apple TV Plus service with ads. I think there might be 2 tiers or something like that. Because listen, there's an interesting option. If you create an ad-supported channel that is lower priced or no price, do you therefore start drawing an audience in for your content? And here's a really wild idea. Maybe only have season 1 shows of a given series on that ad-supported tier. And if you want to see season 2 and 3 or more, that you have to subscribe to the higher channel.
Yeah. There's lots of ways they could do it. My other question to you then, in 6 months' time, again, i.e. basically by the end of the year, do you think we will see, as a permanent fixture, some kind of way of having non-Apple created content in Apple TV Plus?
I think you'll see it probably for 6 months or a little bit longer. I'm not ready to say permanent because I don't know. Right now, we're sitting in the middle of, we're at the end of July, beginning of August here in the U.S., which are we're still in vacation time. Things don't get back to quasi-normal until schools open in late August, early September. And then people start having to get into the colder months in much of the U.S., not all of the U.S., of course. And that's when I think TV viewing goes up. So I would think you're probably looking at somewhere in February, March before any firm decisions are made about the long-term viability. If I were sitting there, that's when I would want to do it.
Okay, so you're thinking we'll wait and see stuff in the new year, not sort of the end of this year. When I meant permanent fixture, I didn't mean that in the sense that the content would be permanent, but this idea of non-Apple created content would be permanent.
Charlotte, other than your comments about diluting it, I don't see a downside to it, because if I don't care about it, then I don't have to bother with it.
Sure. So, I mean, that's obviously true. And look, we know that on Netflix and Prime Video and there's all sorts of content you and I have never discovered that is just there, and people just don't know about. So maybe it just doesn't offend people. Personally, if I were Apple, I would be focusing more on marketing the good stuff they do have than trying to add potentially less good stuff. Anyway, we will see.
That's something we completely agree on, because I feel like that there's content there that I want to recommend to friends and have recommended to friends, and they love it. But they would never have found it on their own, even if they are Apple TV Plus subscribers.
Well, yeah, totally agree with you. Well, that's a lot to be thinking about over the summer. We will return. We might have some exciting TV Plus news for you as well when we return. We'll see. We're going to have a little bit of a summer chill out, I think. Maybe catch up with some of the stuff we've missed in the busier months of the year. And, we'll be back. Chuck, where can people keep up with you while they miss you in the interim?
I'd be delighted if they missed me in the interim, Charlotte. If they do, they can find me at MacVoices.com. That's where I talk to a lot of interesting people about Apple tech and beyond. And on the socials, you can find me as at Chuck Joyner.
I'm at Charlotte A. Henry across social media, and head over to theedition.net for blogs, newsletters, and more podcasts. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.